So yes, so this is the first online conference, and I must tell you that it's been such a learning curve. And for anyone that does not know me, my name is Tokunbo Shumbayo, and I'm the founder of Women Elevating Women.
Right, we'll make a start. Wonderful. First of all, I would just like to say thank you to Tokunbo and the team for inviting me to speak at Women Elevating Women. For many years, I've attempted to come to the conference, but it always clashes with something. Mm-hmm. So round about now as well, I think I probably would have, maybe traveled and wouldn't have been, around to attend the conference. But what made me join the group, I didn't even know it was, there was a Facebook group. I just, went in search. But what made me join was I was on a journey myself, a journey of self-evaluation, just digging into a bit more detail, around, digging into, so I was on a journey, digging into a bit more detail about my life. And one of my action points was to join a women's networking group. And I already knew about Women Elevating Women. So I went knocking on the door saying, please let me into the group. I'd love to have fun with you guys. And here I am. So it's made me giggle several times already that you came here just to eat all the cake. Now you have to bake cake. So, so it's really, it's really interesting that I've come here. Communication. I've worked in communication for many, many years, but in training for much longer, actually. And for me, it's a joy to be able to bring both together, because I find with communication, people have a lot of assumptions. So some people tell you, oh, I'm doing fantastic on it. Whereas, we could easily say that is not the case. And it's so much fun. And one of the areas within communication I begin to grow in. So there's the broad, spectrum of ways that you communicate, of tools that you have, is building relationships. So I just love the dynamics. I'm not afraid, of a massive group of people. And it just really interests me how all those subtle things go on unnoticed by most people. So that quite excites me. So for today, what does communication have to do with the theme? What next? Journey in the right direction. There are so many, skills that you'd probably find that you need to develop or work on this, journeying in the right direction. And communication is just one of them. And you, as an individual, are a powerful communication tool. Because what you say, what you do, what you think about yourself will really determine how people receive your messages. But you need to be intentional and you need to be confident. And those are two words I'll probably repeat over and over again. But please forgive me, because that's the whole point, today for Women Elevating Women. So in the simplest form, I know you know the answer, but what is communication? So communication is you have information, a message, you want to pass it on to people, an audience. That audience might be one person, might be many, in various ways. And then you're going to choose an appropriate channel by which you send it. So for somebody who doesn't have a mobile phone, text is just not an appropriate way to reach them. For customers who are not on social media is not going to be an appropriate way to meet them. So communication in its simplest form, message to the audience through an appropriate channel. And communication, can be verbal, the words we speak, or it could be non-verbal, our body language, those little, gestures, those things that say a lot more than words can do. And for us as women, we have so many reasons why we need to, be strong with our communication. Let's not even start listing, all the issues women face in trying to get their voice heard in the bigger picture. But even from the smallest level, it's so important that we have strong communication skills. So as I said earlier on, it's so important, to be intentional and confident, because that's one of the ways you will meet your goals. So today, this session is, I think I have to swap my laptops around. I can present better that way. Good. Forgive me. Right. That's it. So in today's session, I want us to look at our touch points, and I'll tell you what touch points are in a second, so that, as I said, you can be confident and intentional, about using those opportunities, because we find that sometimes those opportunities to communicate are going past us, back and forth, and we're missing some of them, or we're not using those opportunities well enough. And it's quite important for us to use those opportunities to communicate clearly and impactfully, and make sure that within our plan, journeying in the right direction, we have our communication nailed. We have goals in there which show that we're going to do something about it. So a touch point is actually a place or a situation where you have contact with your customers or even your stakeholders. People who have an interest in what you do, people who can influence what you do, just a range of people. And there's so many touch points, but I'm only going to talk about a few, because I've tried to find a middle ground, and I've tried to use, time well. My first question is this. How long does it take to make a first impression? So you could, type in the chat box. Can I actually see the chat box? No, I can't. All right.
Okay.
Oh, I can actually.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I can. Yes. So you can type in the chat box, Debbie says just a few seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. It's interesting. Yeah. Just a matter of seconds. The very first time that someone meets you, they already would have formed an impression, about you. There was a study done among 2,000 Americans in which they examined the art of first impressions. And they found that in 7 in 10 of those Americans, about 69%, a first impression is formed before someone even speaks. And that says a lot. It says that not only are words important, but also what we do. Those things that can speak even when we're physically not there. For example, our products, our services. Okay. If anyone is beginning to feel a bit emotional because they have seen a picture of Donald Trump, no need to worry, because we're going to examine Mr. Donald Trump, put him under our communications microscope, and just have a little, discussion, something just for us to explore. So my question to you is this, and be fair, point out the good as well as the bad. What do you think of Mr. Trump's communication generally? Yeah. Hornet's nest. Not good. So what are the good facial expressions I've seen? That any good as well? Inconsistent? Debbie says it's like he doesn't know what's going on most of the time. And it's not dependable. Is there anything good about Mr. Trump? About his method of communication? Remember I said you need to be fair. This is amazing. Did you see that? Good, consistently inconsistent. So the good thing about Mr. Trump is that he's dependable. He's consistent.
Absolutely. Never disappoints.
He never disappoints. Right. There's three things I'd like to point out about Mr. Trump in terms of his communication. I normally do this with three different types, and it can get a bit crazy, particularly when people see the pictures. But I felt, oh, Trump's in the news, I'm going to delete all the other pictures and put him in. But three particular things. Trump pitches to the confidence of, he pitches to his audience, and he does it confidently. So even though he's all over the place, a hornet's nest, I'll never forget that. I never watched the news the same again. But even though his ways may not be our ways, one thing is he pitches to the audience, and that's how he's been able to pin down, the attention, the focus, of the Black Pentecostals or the Black community in a certain area. It's important for us as well to speak to our audience, showing them that we have an affinity. He's shown an affinity with religion, affinity with this, Mr. Trump. Confidence, as I said already, is important. What you confidently say, do, and think and feel about yourself will come through in your communication. And that's why Mr. Trump is sometimes annoying, because he's so confident in being wrong. And the third thing I'd like to point out is opportunities, which is what today is really about, opportunities. Just imagine, if you look to your top left-hand corner, Mr. Trump is holding a Bible. That was not a good way to use that opportunity. But just imagine if Mr. Trump had used that opportunity well. Just imagine. Something else could have happened. And it's the same for us as well, because our reputation really matters. And reputation is how people, receive those messages, what we're projecting, and they form an impression, all that is so important. Our bank said, never dull your shine for somebody else. Confidence in your communication. So we're going to go on to touch points. So as I said earlier on, a touch point, is a place or a situation where you have contact with your customers or your stakeholders. So it's not just about, the business to business relationships. It's about the personal one. If you're self-employed and you sell a product or a service, it's those places where you connect with them. It's places where you network as well. There are numerous ones that you could list, and think about your own, so that as you go ahead, because even though I've only talked about a few touch points, some of the lessons from the touch points I talk about are applicable elsewhere. Okay. So your touch points provide opportunities to influence your customers and your stakeholders' perception of you. And reputation is formed by communication, by interaction, and by behaviors. And tomorrow, I talk a bit more about behaviors. So in order for you to communicate, it's important you think about who, why, what, when, how. So you're thinking about your audience. You're thinking about your communication objectives. You think about what exactly, do I want to say about my why, and to who, when. We've talked about timing early on. What if, Mr. Trump, use that Bible opportunity better? What if? We'll be saying something different. In terms of your what, it's always important to have some positive messages, put into our communication, because the way we communicate at the same time can send out positive and can send out negative, or it can be consistent in sending out negative. And depending on what you're doing, you would have your own, positive messages. And these are just a couple of examples. So for instance, I care. Sometimes some of my customers may not want to follow my advice. And that's not because they don't trust me, but sometimes it's because I have read that there's something blocking them, a limiting belief. Maybe they've thought, oh, more work. So I'm a freelance book editor, and the first reaction people tend to get by the time I explain the process is that, really, because everybody believes that writing a book is just slam it down on a couple of pages, send it off to the publisher, that's it. People don't automatically think about the effort that's gone into making, one, the message unique, and also making sure that the message gets to them. So for me, my I care to them, my key positive messages is that, this book, just imagine where it could take you. And I begin to gently talk about, the things, create a picture in their mind that lifts their energy as well. Just one more example about key positive messages. I think probably about 2-3 weeks ago, someone showed me some messaging that she was going to put out about her business. And I said, could we flip that around? Because I'm reading it, and to me, it reads depression. We are in a bad situation. This pandemic. I was like, let's flip it around. And I suggested someone, let's say, hey, pandemic is almost over and we're going to be back in business. You are going to have a party soon and we are going to be there for you. That sort of stuff. And the funny thing is that she had paused business and I didn't know that. And she said that actually by her putting out a positive message for her audience, she herself became more positive and business was coming in. So positive messages are also important as well. So I've just said we should think about who, why, what, and when. And I talked about key positive messages. So remember to, at least scribble down your own, have a good think while you're replanning this journey forward. And the first touch point I'd like to talk about is meetings. These questions I put here because they can help you actually, reflect. You see, meetings are a really important touch point. And when I say meetings, don't just think about face-to-face. Don't think about 10 billion people, think about one-to-one as well. All meetings, as far as you, a professional person, a community leader, all meetings are important. So think about some of these things. These questions, what's coming back to you that's saying, I need to work on something, I need to fix something, I probably need coaching, I probably need mentoring, I probably need to gather some feedback. Okay, so a couple of tips for you in terms of meetings, remembering that quite a lot of messages about you as an individual are being emitted like electromagnetic rays when you're in a meeting. People form an impression within seconds, as we found earlier on. So my first tip is have clear communication objectives. For me, good communication is to be heard, to contribute, and to engage in meetings. And it's quite important because if you keep on going to a meeting, one, you're not using your time well. Two, you'd probably feel a bit frustrated about this meeting. And other people are probably wondering, why does she come? She has nothing to say. People are not seeing your true value in action. So have, clear communication objectives, whether you're chairing or not. It's so important. I used to do some training around what's called the collaboration cycle, and it's, when groups are trying to form maybe a project group, a task force, that sort of stuff. So it's a sort of training that, helps them settle. Particularly, and it always came up that people were attending meetings for the sake of meetings. And it's simply down to the fact that people don't have clear communication objectives. I moved to a new department and I was going, with my manager, this was many years ago, I was going to a meeting with him and trying to get myself into the right frame of mind, for this meeting. And I asked him, why are we going to this meeting? What's the purpose? And he said he didn't know. And of course, when we got to the meeting, we could not contribute. So clear communication objectives are important. My second point is prepare. You see, preparation gives you confidence. When I was preparing for this, every time I have, that sudden adrenaline rush, around is something, sorry. So anytime I suddenly have an adrenaline rush around, Friday's coming, I remind myself, Karis, you prepared. And I've delivered part of this talk before, but it never matters to me. My mind just prepares again. And so preparation gives us confidence. So as long as you've prepared for a meeting, you've probably looked up the agenda, who's coming to the meeting? If you're going to that meeting and you are trying to influence somebody, what is it that you can consciously think about that person that you can build into your communication approach that would persuade them to say yes, yes, yes to whatever you're bringing to the meeting? So preparation is so important. Who else is attending? Are there any people that are going to object to what you're providing? Do you need facts and figures to persuade people? Do you need to show someone a product or a testimony from a service that you've delivered before? Prepare. And then my third point, in capital letters, is speak. You have clear objectives, you've prepared, now speak. Show them your worth. Speak. You might get to the meeting and you're feeling, I know what I want to say, but I can't say, And then the other thing as well with meetings is that sometimes, if it's a bigger group, you find that there are people who can talk over people, talk under people, talk through people, and it can be quite hard to get in. And you need to be ready for that moment. If I'm trying to respond to something someone's saying, I just write 3 points. What do I think about that topic? And sometimes, because of preparation, I have already had a basic understanding. I've already asked myself, what do I think about agenda 1? What do I think about agenda 2? What do I think about agenda 3? So when I get to the meeting, I can speak. And while someone's speaking, in order for me to respond, I'm writing down my notes, maybe 1 sentence each, so that I don't forget, so that my nerves don't swallow up what I'm about to say. And when the time comes, I say what I need to say. So speaking is important. Be confident, be concise, be polite. Another one is encourage people on the sidelines. There's some other people, by looking around, you can see some people, they're a nervous wreck. And people tend to forget them. Nobody really cares about bringing them in. But it's an important, a very strong communication, skill to be able to say, actually, Debbie was about to say something. I'm talking about you were about to come back on. So, bring people in. Great communication skills. Questions, listening, summarizing, and feedback. They probably all come together. Ask questions to clarify. Asking questions is quite intelligent. Because sometimes I ask questions and people are like, actually that is we didn't really think about that. Powerful. When you're listening, not only listen to what's being said, but what's not being said. So important. Summarizing and feedback as well, it helps show, apart from the fact that it shows that you understand, it shows that you're engaged. It shows you appreciate what people are saying. And finally, body language. And we'll talk a bit more about that tomorrow. Use your smile, your nod, your eye contact, the motion for your head, and what have you. Feedback I've received is, when I have a panel of study, the fact that I sweep everybody at one point in time, I don't leave anybody out. So that's been given to me as good feedback. And next, I'm going on to business cards. What I'm going to say about business cards applies to websites, leaflets, and manuals. But I chose this one because it's middle ground for all of us. And before I talk about that, I actually have my pot of business cards, pot 1, pot 2. And I'm sure if we go around the house, I'll be able to bring up that number of business cards up to about 500 business cards. The reason why I used to collect them was I used to do training around networking, and we'll spread them out, and people will review them in order to pick up tips, because it's so powerful when you see something, is then you can learn from it. Your business card is a really important communication tool. Take it from me, it is so important. But sadly, we often relegate it, to just a function of Karis Kolawole, Head of Faith Partnerships. That's it. What does your strapline say? Will somebody remember you because your business card clearly tells us, what you do? It doesn't just say, oh, I'm trying to look for a complicated word. I can't. But sometimes you read them and you don't really know what the person does. Or maybe somebody does several things. They've put acrobat, they've put tailor, they've put mechanic, and it's like, okay, all right. Which one do you do the most? And what I really know that person for is hidden down below. So even if I was going through my 500 cards, the first line says they're an acrobat, and they rarely do their acrobatic stuff. So many things to consider, but many years ago, I went on a training course, and this lady during the break was just giving us our business cards. And I took her business card, and I can promise you I did not instantly, analyze that business card. No, I didn't. But some weeks later, something happened in the training course, and I needed to call her to say, come quick, you're not in class. I looked at her business card. Why couldn't I contact her? She had a business card that was probably that big. It was massive. It was brown, ugly as well. There was no contact details on it. Business card. Sadly, no contact details on it. So you want people to value the information that's on there, and you want people to remember you. So it's so important that these physical, aspects, are addressed as well. So make sure you've got a clear message. Let's know what you do now. Don't give me the business card of when you used to be the president of America and now you're the president in another country. Let it be updated. Let it be current. Let there be a clear call to action. What can I buy for you? Let them be creative as well. Let them be attractive and fit for purpose. I know there are a lot of ways we can do them online nowadays. And I prepared this little Blue Peter thing here. You see, these are 3 different business cards. They are all the exact same template. I mean, I've had to cover their addresses. All 3 do 3 different things. And I've got several here which have used the same template, and they're not unique. And some people are not really creative, so they just slammed it on paper. But in the case of these people, one does themed greeting cards and is a project manager. One card. The other one sells aloe vera products. The third one is LS Landscape. I think the person who is closest to that design is Mr. Landscape. So be creative, make it attractive and fit for purpose. In terms of fit for purpose, 2015 came into my current full-time job, because I'm full-time and self-employed. And I did a business card, because that's what you do. Business card, I need a business card. I'm going to go out and I'm going to network, tell the whole world about this amazing charity. And till today, I still have more than half of those business cards. Because something funny happened. There's another item which is a bit bigger than the business cards, which people do. And my question was, this thing could do more. Let's make it do more. So I took over one side of it. And whenever I go to an event, people pick up the other one, because one, it's more attractive, 2, it's more informative. And, they use it as different things, other than just put the, card somewhere and that's it. So on business cards, it's obvious from what I've said already, review your details, change them every now and again. If you do have to cross out anything at all, please do so neatly. So I'll move on to the next one. Products and services. So for somebody who's in employment, see yourself as someone who delivers services. And it's so important, that at every point at which people come in contact with your product or your service, you're communicating strongly. You're communicating, making sure that it's clear what your message is. So your product or your service is an extension of you. It communicates all the time. Someone gave my husband, a cake for Father's Day, and I kept on turning the box around, trying to find things around nutrition to, how long can we keep this for? Because, it had cream, it had all sorts of stuff, on it. All those things speak. It could have been information that you could probably consult Debbie and say, look, I've got, something. How do I put the nutrition on it so that people will buy it for that, if that's what they're interested in? I once went to a party. There was a gentleman walking around, and I could see that his body language he was looking for something. So I decided to follow him with my eyes because I wanted to know what he's looking at. But from the way he was dressed, he was a chef. But what he was going around doing was he was just making sure that wherever my product is, it better be speaking. So he was just making sure that the way things were laid out, on the table, were attractive. He was asking people for feedback there and then. He was also making sure people were enjoying it. In some cases, he was probably, because I couldn't hear all his conversations, but he was probably asking some people, would you like something else? Have you tried out this? All those things are important in terms of communication, because people will remember him and say, the chef that came to so was fantastic. So packaging and labeling, there's a lot we can learn from big brands, but don't overdo it. Start from where you are and build things up. Review your packaging, review your labeling, review your display points. If you displayed, sorry, I'm using food again, but if you displayed food next to something dirty, then people wouldn't, they wouldn't value it. Maybe when I go to festivals, sometimes people have made things like soap, and the little display thing beside it just makes you want to buy it, because it will tell you, oh, it's got lavender that does this, it's got lemon that does this. This is ordinary lemon that I see in my house suddenly is raised in profile, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like a little bar of that soap, because they have enticed me with their communication through their project. Secondly, okay, I think I've said a bit about display, but signage is important. But the third one, quality communicates. Pay attention to quality. Quality communicates. Mark Twain said, always do things right. It will gratify some people and astonish the rest. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to astonish people, trying to astonish your manager, trying to astonish your customers, trying to astonish your stakeholders. Quality needs to shout out and say you, as in it needs to address your customers and your stakeholders and say, you need me. I can meet your needs. I am the best. I value what you value. It needs to have all those key positive messages screaming out to your customer. It needs to say, buy me again. The Gucci family say that quality is remembered long after the price is forgotten. And I agree. And that's probably the reason why some people have clutter in their house, because it's like that bargain blouse that they bought from Marks and Spencer's. I don't want to let it go because, it's just so fantastic, So quality speaks long after the price is forgotten. Finally, curtsies and, second to the last, curtsies and pleasantries are so important. The way we speak to people on the phone, in our emails. I was quite shocked when some of my colleagues, particularly the ones that were new to the organizations, came back to me and they commented that just reading the end of my email just really lifts them up. I always end my emails with blessings or blessings and peace now that we've got the pandemic. But, it was quite important. And the first time I ever did, I was like, oops, how will people take this? But it's me. So I put blessings at the end, but people's reaction to it, the way you speak to people on the phone. Superdrug emailed me recently, and the guy started with humor about, it was a very human to human start to a conversation. Remember those things, courtesies and pleasantries, because they help you connect with people. Time. If you don't value people's time, they won't respect you. The way you manage time will show, that you don't care or you care. Those things are really important. It communicates something. You're sitting around, your customer, your manager, your colleague, other people in the meeting are sitting around waiting for you. It's communicating something. Use good time management to manage expectations. So moving on swiftly to websites. Very similar to, our business card saga, actually. Keep it current. Now, I used to have a website, but I took it down because, one, I'd moved on from the purpose at the time. So I had to take it down. Secondly, I had DIY'd it, and my DIY was not good. When I stepped back and I was honest with myself, my DIY was not good. And that's the truth. So many of the things I say about websites, they apply to social media, but there is another session, I believe, on social media. So do tune into that. A website talks to your audience even when you are not there. So it should match what you really want your audience to know. So you don't have to physically pop up every time to say, actually, this is what I want to say, even though I haven't put it on my website. Your website needs to say it for you. And it needs to say what you need to say now, not what you were saying yesterday. So same thing I said about, the business card. Don't give me a business card or a website that's telling me about what's happening before. Keep it refreshed. If I go today and the blog post I read is still the one from 6 months, earlier, then I wouldn't come back because I've been checking. It's not there. You could probably change your landing page, and say, look, we'll be back, or whatever it is, or take it down temporarily. Your messages need to be clear across every single page. Silver lining across, through the pages. It's not that page 1 should tell us, that you're an acrobat. Then page 2 says that you're not a great one. Page 3 says, well, maybe you're a good acrobat. It should consistently say what you really mean to say. So make it easy to use. In these days, accessibility is so important. So do make it accessible. Tokumo's designed countless websites already. She's been doing it for years. So please speak to her. Just be open to her feedback. Just send a link to your website to her and say, please be honest. Give it to me straight. So if you've got the sort of website which people need to follow instructions, make sure those instructions are clear. Don't make them complicated. Just make them clear. Test what you're putting on your website. Test it with people. Get free feedback. And make sure that you don't just put things on it for the sake of it. Don't, just clutter it. And remember, pictures are also a means of communicating. So let pictures do their job and let words do theirs. So keep it current. So we've gone through several things, and we've talked about websites, business cards. I can peek here, meetings, and all these things. It's so important to get the messaging right. Pitch it for your audience. Make sure your personal presentation, we won't go into that, that will take us forever, but make sure that your personal presentation, your tone, your listening skills, everything that adds up to great communication is on point. So what I'd like you to do as a result of me taking probably about an hour of your time is this. Probably not here. It might be when you sit back and have that time to properly reflect. List all your touch points where you want to have powerful, intentional, and confident communication. Review each of them and get feedback. You could do it as, oh, I found this to be a good thing, so I'll continue it. this is not working, so I'll stop it or I'll review it. So there are different ways of reviewing, whatever's best for you. Then make a plan of action which fits into your journey in ahead, because that's what all this is about. What do I want to get better at? Do I want to get better at speaking publicly? Do I want to be somebody who engages better at meetings? You know, do I want to leave a meeting and people remember what I said? People are still raving about what I said at a meeting. Do I want to be able to speak up? You know, there are many things. My website, now that I'm journeying forward, I'm taking my project to my product or my service to another level. What do I need to change? So all these things need to go into your plan of action and then review from time to time. So I'm going to end on this slide. Always say good, do good, think good, and feel good. Be confident and be intentional by whatever it is you want to say. And that's where I'll end in order to take questions. So I'm trying to look for chat. I think this is reading glasses time. Oops. Okay. Sorry, I've forgotten that I'm working with this laptop, which the mouse works differently. So totally agree, and it costs nothing. You're very right. Call to actions are always my downfall. I always forget that crucial part. Definitely need to work on those. Great advice and things. Thank you, Debbie. Amazing. Thank you. What are the essential things on the business card? So on the business card, definitely your name, the name you want to be known by. One of the business cards in here, and I reviewed, actually, I should have some of my notes from reviewing some of these 300 plus cards. Your name, of course, your telephone number. A strap line is also good as well. You know, I should have had some examples to hand. But people have things like the brand you can trust. People have, you know, all sorts of them. With corporate organizations, they're probably much better at this. But you need a nice, clear, simple message, simply saying what your business is about. Not in too many words, but what sort. You know, there's so many bakers. What sort of, you know, baker are you? You do delicious cakes. Use those nice adjectives to really empower, to entice, you know, to draw people into what you do. Some people use the reverse of their card as well for things. So maybe under you being whatever it is you are, you've got 4 more bullet points. You could put that on the reverse, for instance. Another thing which I found people did well on the cards as well is some people have like a loyalty thing at the back. So people would keep that business, they have no choice but to keep the business card because the loyalty thing is at the back. I saw a dentist, I saw someone who makes cakes do it, you know, there were just someone who does nails as well did it. There are those sorts of nice things as well. The other thing which I found people do nowadays is they will still write out telephone, email. It takes up space. Nowadays, everybody, well, I think everybody, most of us anyway, when we see a telephone number without writing telephone before it or without writing email in front of an email, you will know it's an email or a telephone. So you don't really necessarily have to put the label on. It saves you space. It allows you to use the white on your card or the plain color or whatever it is that's going on in the background. The other thing on a business card, you know, that's essential, maybe your website as well. And you might have changed your website or your telephone number. As I said earlier on, just cross it out nicely till you can upgrade, you know, your card. I hope I have, thank you, I've been working, oh, okay, yes. I've been working on consistency across all platforms, and that's something from Rose Kate as well. Rose Kate, I'm sure you won't mind, but we were having an interesting discussion. So Rose Kate sells beautiful dresses, as in you may want most of them. You may want most of them. This is really dangerous business. But with Rose Kate's display, when I look at them, they tell me the dresses are beautiful. They tell me the dresses are beautiful. But I was saying to her that, why not put a necklace around it which says, buy me, which also says to me, Rose Kate can dress me. Rose Kate can make me look stunning. And it's those creative ways we need to, think a bit more about how we present, our product so that it can communicate. And I'm sure she won't mind me saying.
No, that's fine. That's okay. That's cool.
It's really great points to remember. Thank you. That was a name badge. Okay. Are there any other questions that I could take before we move on? Okay. Yeah, I think that's me done. Just be confident, intentional, just review what you're doing, ask people, what they really think. You stand back and look at your own self and your own mode of communication. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Karis. I really appreciate that. I know that we've taken in a lot of information, which is very, very essential in life and in business. So it's not even just business that we can use all this information for, but we can use it, in our day-to-day lives, which is what Women Elevating Women is all about. So I do thank you for that. Sorry for the hiccups. I'm going to apologize, but also I'm not going to apologize because, I love that all this is happening because it helps everyone who's holding themselves back to say, you know what, mistakes would happen and I can make it in a safe environment. That's why I want Women Elevating Women to be that safe environment where we all come and support each other. And if anything happens, we are all there to say, let's give a hand. Ariane gave a hand with the SharePoint. And that's the whole thing of Women Elevating Women. And I'm not having any sleepless nights over the fact that I needed to change my laptop. My laptop literally packed up and I will sort it out. But I had another one at hand. And I'm putting down all these points of the things that I'm picking up as we're going along. And so that's all a part of the communication, is making sure that I keep everybody, aware of what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm not hiding anything so that, when we had to get off and get back on, you knew why. But anyway, so thank you so much, Karis. Really appreciate that. For everyone, finally, we are live on Facebook. So if you're doing anything else, everyone else is seeing you as well. So finally got it on Facebook. Big lesson from that. Always make sure you have all your passwords. Can you imagine if I didn't know my passwords for Zoom and Facebook and, everything else I'm using? Because that's one of the big things that I've seen with a lot of business owners. They don't remember their passwords, so this was a good one when I had to log into my work laptop to use it to do this. I don't have it on my other laptop. It's all automatic. So it would just populate itself because I've set it up that way. But now I've had to use my laptop and it's been different. So once again, I want to say a really big thank you, Karis. Thanks for being here. And for everyone else, thank you so much for all of you being here.